On March 11, 2026, an unprecedented 200,000 endpoints across 79 different countries simultaneously received a devastating remote wipe command. Stryker, a medical technology company generating $25 billion in annual revenue, saw its global operations halt instantly, creating immediate backlogs in order processing and shipping. The outage directly compromised the Department of Defense supply chain. Stryker holds $450 million in defense contracts, supplying critical inventory to military hospitals. Frontline healthcare providers were similarly stranded, as highly specialized surgical tools and neurotechnology equipment essential for emergency rooms became unavailable. Within hours, the company filed an 8K notice with the Securities and Exchange Commission, confirming a global network disruption affecting its entire Microsoft environment. An 8K is a mandatory public report filed with the SEC to announce major events that shareholders should know about. A single intrusion at a key supplier node cascaded across the global defense and healthcare ecosystems, proving that a breach in one network shatters the operational trust of thousands of dependent organizations. The attackers deployed a destructive wiper, completely eschewing financially motivated ransomware. A wiper is a class of malware designed entirely to erase data and destroy systems rather than extort money. Security analysts linked the intrusion to Void Manticore, an Iranian state-sponsored group operating under the hacktivist persona Handala, whose motives are ideological disruption. To execute this destruction, the attackers did not rely on a zero-day software vulnerability. A zero-day is a software flaw discovered by attackers before the vendor has become aware of it. Instead, they weaponized Stryker's own mobile device management platform, Microsoft Intune. An MDM platform allows IT teams to centrally configure, secure, and manage connected devices from the cloud. By compromising high-privilege Entra ID administrator accounts, the attackers acquired the legitimate authority to issue a global remote wipe command directly from the central cloud hub. Entra ID is Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management service. Typical malware incursions rely on sneaking malicious files past network defenses. In this instance, the adversary logged in and used the enterprise's mandated administrative tools to command the endpoints to erase themselves. When an adversary legitimately controls the enterprise management plane, legacy file-based detection systems fail because they are programmed to implicitly trust commands originating from those platforms. To understand how to stop an attack of this nature, we must apply a reverse kill chain forensic methodology, starting at the final seconds of the attack when the wipe command executed. At the endpoint level, the first line of defense is an antivirus engine, such as Semantic AVE, which attempts to identify known wiper hashes, using static data scanners. A hash is a unique mathematical signature identifying a specific file. Zero-day wipers bypass static signatures entirely. This necessitates behavioral analysis engines like Sonar, which monitor processes in real time to detect and terminate aggressive system file modifications before they complete. Because modern wipers often execute entirely in memory to avoid writing files to a disk, Memory Exploit Mitigation, or MEM, serves as the critical countermeasure. MEM protocols like 4-step and SEOHP actively block buffer overflow code injections. 4-step is a system-level protection that prevents attackers from turning off data execution prevention, while SEOHP stops attackers from hijacking a program's execution flow by overriding its exception handler functions. If MEM is not strictly enforced, attackers utilize heap spring to place malicious code in predetermined memory locations, or use return-oriented programming chains to hijack the operating system. MEM severs these chains by enforcing force ASLR, which randomizes where critical system files load into memory. Without deep memory instrumentation and behavioral heuristics running locally on the endpoint, an MDM-pushed wiper command executes unchecked. Stepping backward in the kill chain to Phase 3, we reach the exact moment the wiper command was pushed through the Intune network. Mitigating this risk requires a system lockdown architecture enforced by strict file fingerprint allow listing. Allow listing ensures that an endpoint will instantly block any unverified script, even if it is pushed by an origin-verified MDM platform. Furthermore, application and device control policies must restrict fully authorized administrative tools from loading rogue DLLs or launching unauthorized child processes during execution. A DLL, or Dynamic Link Library, is a file containing code that multiple programs can use simultaneously. During an active push event, an endpoint firewall provides another layer of defense by explicitly restricting inbound traffic to shut down lateral movement across the network. A network application monitor works alongside the firewall to actively isolate and drop any IP traffic that originates from unrecognized processes. An MDM command must never imply absolute trust. Endpoints must independently verify the behavior and lineage of every single script they receive. Moving back to Phase 2, the reconnaissance period reveals that the attackers spent weeks or even months mapped inside Stryker's network before launching the wiper. The industry median dwell time is between 11 and 26 days. Allowing adversaries access for months represents a failure in enterprise governance, risk, and compliance. GRC is the framework an organization uses to manage risk and meet regulatory requirements. During this time, the attackers utilized living off the land, or LOTL techniques. LOTL involves mapping networks quietly by abusing native IT tools, like PowerShell, PSExec, and WMI. WMI is a set of specifications from Microsoft for consolidating the management of devices and applications in a network. This heat map shows typical software interactions and process trees in an enterprise network, illustrating how organizations deploy adaptive protection as an automated architectural defense against the LOTL paradox. By profiling the environment, adaptive protection automatically blocks anomalous dual-use behaviors. For example, if Microsoft Word unexpectedly attempts to launch PowerShell, the system immediately isolates and blocks the action without breaking standard workflows. Security teams refine this defense by utilizing endpoint detection and response playbooks mapped to the MITRE ATTK framework. MITRE ATTK is a globally accessible knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques based on real-world observations. When trusted IT tools become adversary liabilities, automated behavioral baselining is the only effective method to detect silent administrative reconnaissance. This brings us to Phase 1, the genesis of the kill chain. The initial access the attackers achieved by compromising admin credentials and bypassing multi-factor authentication. MFA is an authentication method requiring 2 or more verification factors to gain resource access. This dashboard shows a risk scoring evaluation of an incoming administrative authentication request based on location, time, and protocol usage. Securing this layer requires identity threat protection tools, which continuously monitor Entra ID and Active Directory for anomalous authentication patterns. Active Directory is a directory service developed by Microsoft for Windows domain networks. The primary forensic indicators for compromised credentials are unusual protocol execution and impossible travel, instances where a user logs in from 2 geographically distant locations in an impossibly short time frame. Enforcing dynamic conditional access based on this continuous risk scoring automatically blocks the initial administrative login, entirely severing the attacker's access to the Intune environment. This is supplemented by web isolation technology, which prevents the initial phishing-driven credential harvesting by separating high-risk web browsing from the local enterprise machine. Identity is the modern perimeter. Failing to lock down Entra ID and other authentication mechanisms mathematically guarantees the compromise of the downstream management plane. Returning to the present day, Stryker faces a massive infrastructure rebuild to recover its wiped global network. The company continues to suffer financial and reputational damage as paranoid downstream vendors actively isolate Stryker from their application programming interfaces to prevent the cyber contagion from spreading. An API is a set of rules that allows different software applications to communicate with each other. Survival in this threat landscape requires the dual application of identity threat protection and aggressive behavior-based endpoint attack surface reduction. Enterprise security architecture must operate under the assumption that the management plane is already hostile. Defending a critical supply chain requires zero trust engineering enforced flawlessly at both the identity layer and the absolute endpoint.